I haven't done a review in a while because I just came to the realization that I'm just not a critical person, you know? I just kind of enjoy everything I watch. It's hard for me to find like glaring negatives in most of the things that I watch. And even if there are really bad negatives, I just don't really pay that much attention to them. I'm just kind of focused on what I like. So instead of doing a review series where I try to nitpick and be out of character just for the sake of being able to give a grade that's not A plus in every single movie that I watch, I'm just gonna name off what I like instead. I think it's just easier, and it still allows me to talk about movies because I like talking about movies. So I'm gonna just do that. Now that I got that out of the way, I'm gonna actually start talking about the Batman and about what I liked about the Batman. And I think the thing that I like the most about this movie is the fact that it is a comic book movie. It is not a movie that tries to not be a comic book movie, but kind of puts superheroes in there. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It doesn't try to be anything other than just a dark comic book movie. It's very Batman like. It's not throwing Batman into real life. It's just taking the Batman character with its comic appeal and putting it on into a movie format basically. And they don't really, they don't do the origin thing. At this point, I think everybody understands what Batman is, who Batman is. They just show Batman right off. It is like I'd say year one. It's technically a year two story. Batman is still very like new, and that's really cool because other than Batman Begins, you don't really get to see like novice Batman do his thing. And Batman Begins is a whole other thing too. So I like that we kind of get to see comic booky Batman, in his beginnings. I just really enjoy how raw he was doing things. Like, he's obviously very inexperienced with the way that he does things. Even the gadgets that he used, they're very like bootleg. His suit is very bootleg. Obviously, it's like all military grade shit or whatever, or what it looks like. But you know what I mean. A lot of the shit that he uses looks like it's like handmade, it's handcrafted. It doesn't look like old Batman suits. Obviously not talking about those suits. I mean, this suit. It looks a lot less professional than that, while still looking, completely ridiculous, which is what I like. It needs to look ridiculous, and I think the movie never takes itself too seriously to the point where the story is like bogged down by it, and you feel like it's like too much. The story is heavy, but basically they're able to tell a story, a dark story, within fiction. Which I feel like sometimes when you try to tell a dark story, you kind of come back to reality, because that's kind of the mentality, right? Like, fiction is like happiness, whatever. When you come back to reality, it's like, oh, that's actually dark, whatever, all that. I like that they're able to take fiction and tell a dark story within fiction. And I think that's like one of the best points of this entire movie. It really doesn't shy away from its comic book roots. And if anything, it really puts them in your face that this whole thing is kind of ridiculous. This movie, despite the type of movie that it is, it's like a noir crime thriller detective movie. Despite that, it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny because it definitely acknowledges the fact that this is a dude in a bat suit beating on thugs. And Batman is a complete dweeb in this movie. Like, he got zero game. I'm talking like negative game. You would think, if anything, this would make Catwoman and Batman's relationship kind of weird, because he's an incel who cannot talk to women, and Selina really comes onto him like kind of strong when they have their moments, right? And to be honest, while you would think that would be weird at first glance, I think it's kind of funny. I think it's funny, and it's kind of endearing in a way, because he doesn't know how to act around her, and you can tell that she has an effect on her, and that he's like slowly starting to care. And the character of Batman in this movie is very jaded, right? He's still at the beginning of his journey. There is no Bruce Wayne as you typically think of him in this movie. He doesn't exist yet. In this movie, all you have is Batman. Batman with a mask and Batman with no mask. He doesn't even try to hide the fact that there is no Bruce Wayne, or that, he is not the typical Bruce Wayne. They don't even try to hide that fact. If anything, they throw it in your face. And I think if this movie ever gets a sequel, which I really hope it gets a sequel, I think we're gonna get to see more of like who Batman as a person is. Not only because they're probably gonna try to do that when they didn't do that in the first movie, because he's gonna be a little bit older. I assume there's gonna be probably a small time skip, but also because they literally sow the seeds in this movie of him becoming the Bruce Wayne that you expect to be. I'm not gonna go too deep into spoilers with that, but they definitely lay the groundwork for him to become a more outgoing person, a more like a dude that kind of goes out of his ways, does things for his community. Like, it's not there in this movie, but it's definitely intended for him to become that character. I just really enjoyed the character of Batman. That's who you spend the most of the movie with. And when I say Batman, I do mean Batman. You barely see Bruce Wayne in this movie. It's, I'd say 80 to 85% Batman for the most part. And I really, really enjoyed his character. And I enjoyed all the characters, to be honest. Riddler was super cool. And I really like the modernization of the character. Turning him into like a fucking Twitch streamer, which is basically what he is, like to a very small niche community, is so smart. Because it just fits. It works out really well because his character does seem like someone in this movie that, you know, would have a Twitch stream. He just clearly gets off on like doing things and getting a reaction out of people. And I just love how amazingly unhinged he was in this movie, but also very in control, not of his emotions necessarily, but in control of the situations. And also, he's like low-key a horror villain, like at many points, at the points where he appears in real life, not on the screen, and even on the screen at some points. He's like a horror villain. Just the way that he stalks around. The opening scene in this movie is straight out of a horror movie. It's not a superhero movie. It is a horror movie, literally. But yeah, overall, very, very on brand Riddler for modern times. And, you know, it gives Reddit lurkers their, like, on brand hero. So good for them, man. Good for y'all. I liked Selina, obviously. I liked Jim Gordon. Selina was pretty cool. She's not like a revolutionary take on the character or anything. She's just still a really enjoyable character, and she's a nice flip side to Batman while also not being the complete opposite. She's someone that is also beginning to be broken, and Batman gets to kind of like stop her from going too far. Without going into spoilers, I'm not going to explain what I mean by that, but I really enjoyed their relationship, although maybe we could have gotten more, because she definitely disappears after their first encounter. She disappears for like, I'd say a good 45 minutes. I might be guessing, but I think it was about 45 minutes. It would have been cool if she was in the movie a little bit more, but I still enjoyed what I got out of her. And obviously the other character that was in this movie a lot was Jim Gordon, and he was really cool. And I like how they didn't do the typical thing where like, oh, are they together? You know, Jim is kind of torn between the police and Batman. Like, no, this dude is 100%, no doubt in his mind, back in Batman at all points. And I loved their relationship because it was literally like a good cop, bad cop type of thing at some points, right? And they actually do make a joke about that. But overall, yeah, I really enjoyed the movie.